So today we are here to talk about another interesting topic which everybody knows, wants to know a lot of information about. So today, as we have been into the second phase or second wave of this pandemic, as we're seeing. What is your personal experience when it comes to pediatric COVID, sir?
Pediatric COVID, we have been seeing a lot of cases in pediatric practice, but there's a huge range of the clinical spectrum in pediatric practice. Luckily, and by the grace of God, the pediatric spectrum is much milder compared to the adults. I see a lot of children who were in contact with the parents who had COVID, therefore they tested these children. A lot of these children are asymptomatic. However, those who become symptomatic eventually have got mild symptoms. So, if I see the number of children this second wave compared to the first wave, the number of cases are more. However, I have got a personal feeling that the denominator is high. The overall cases, that is peak in the first wave was up to 1 lakh a day, and this time it is up to 4 lakhs per day. So similarly, more number of children are also affected. As I mentioned, they are of milder degree in majority of the cases.
Thank you, sir. Sir, as we have seen that the first wave, the children had really mild symptoms. Are there any difference in the symptoms in the second wave?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the majority of the children continue to remain having a mild disease. However, now I have started seeing very recently a cohort of children who have got severe disease. These are the ones who are obese, and second, those who have got comorbidities like oncological problems or bone marrow transplant. Having had an experience with 2 waves, this is the first time I've been ventilating children with severe COVID pneumonia. Our personal experience is there's an obese girl, there are 3 to 4 adolescent boys who were on the overweight side. They had a severe COVID pneumonia, and 2 other children who had associated post-stem cell transplantation, and they had very severe progressive COVID pneumonia. So compared to the past, in this wave, I am relatively seeing higher number of children who have got severe disease.
Okay. Sir, consider that a child is showing some symptoms. How soon should we get him investigated?
That's a very, very good question. Before I answer that particular question, I'll just go through for a minute about the evolution of the symptoms and then how. As I said earlier, if a child is in contact with the parents who are confirmed to be COVID, and if the child remains asymptomatic, you could wait. However, if the child is a new child who is not exposed to anything and he presents in this epidemic with fever, cold, cough, or any other symptoms, then he need to be immediately investigated. Only if you want to check if the parents are very anxious, then they can be checking the baby after 4 to 5 days after the child was in contact with the person who had a confirmed cases of COVID. So the timeline is, if they are symptomatic, investigation should be done immediately. If they are contacts, that can be done 4 to 5 days after the contact.
Okay. Yeah, that answers the question, sir. So what would be the line of management for these patients?
So coming to the children I am encountering, I want to classify these children as mild and moderate and then severe. Mild children are the ones who have symptoms similar to any other flu. That is fever, headache. Some children who are old enough may say backache, myalgia, body pain. And some children after day 1 or 2 may start having cold, runny nose, sore throat, and then progresses to day 3 with cough. And this is a full spectrum of COVID infection. However, very interestingly, a lot of children who are coming have only one of these symptoms. That's what I am seeing is they may just have cold and cough. They again say subsequently when you ask, was there anybody in the family COVID? Yes sir, I was having COVID last week. Then what is your child having now? Only cold and cough. Does he have fever? Not much. Some children are having only fever, and that fever is only brief, just for a day or 2. How is he now? For last 2 days, he is completely fine, sir. what did you do? I went and I got his COVID tested and he's positive. Now how is he? He's fine, playing. So the spectrum of COVID in children is very mild, very brief, and the symptom complex comprises of fever, which may be mild or high grade, cold, cough, and headache, myalgia. However, if these children are a little bit more sick, then they are categorized as moderate. These moderate group of children have got fever that is persisting. Compared to the previous one which I described, these children beyond third, fourth day are still continuing to have fever 101, 102. And then the cough which was initially mild started to become more severe. They are coughing from their chest. And then you will notice since last evening or 24 hours, doctor, I see him, he's breathing heavily. Whenever he's running, he's breathing heavily. And now, on fourth day, they may start sleeping more, not interested in food, and they look unwell. This is when the disease is called moderate. If you have pulse oximetry and you know his baseline saturation says 98 or 99, normal saturation in children is generally 98 to 100%. However, compared to the previous one, if it is beginning to fall, then it is and that associated with heaviness in the breathing is a matter of concern. So these second group is moderate. However, if the child has significant breathing difficulty and oxygen saturations are less than 94 or towards 90, that is classified as severe. So significant breathing difficulty, high fever, and oxygen saturations that are lesser than 90 or 92 is definitely classified as severe. What was your primary thing?
Line of management.
Line of management. Our line of management, why I am trying to explain these things, is the line of management is determined by which category a given child comes to. If I have a mild child, I don't need the child to be admitted. This child can be seen on a video consultation. Nowadays, a lot of video consultations are taking place. You can reach out to your pediatrician via video, and children need 10 to 15 milligrams per kilogram of paracetamol, Calpol, Crocin, whatever brand you have at your home. Give every 6th hourly if the fever is continuous. If not, then as and when needed fever. Give him plenty of fluids of his choice. Maybe some juice, ORS, and liquid diet. And adequate rest is what is needed. Moderate children need very close monitoring. They need to be brought to the hospital and get checked, and preferably do some blood test. Coming to the severe group of category of children, they definitely need admission. There is no second doubt. If your oxygen are less, immediate treatment of line is initiate oxygen therapy, do some blood test, start IV fluids. Previously, IV remdesivir was the treatment of choice in severe forms of disease. WHO has very clearly recommended that it is no more useful. These children has to be given supportive treatment. What do you mean by supportive treatment? In pediatric critical care unit as well as in high density unit, we have oxygen delivery devices or systems. First is the low flow oxygen, which we give through the nasal pump. If the child is moderate low oxygen, what we call hypoxia, they can be treated with oxygen through nasal cannula. However, if there is progressively increasing in breathing difficulty and oxygen levels are low, we use a machine called HFNC that provides oxygen which is humidified, heated. The children tolerate it well, and that helps to breathe easier. Unfortunately, small percentage of children who have progressively low oxygen, heavy breathing difficulty, and significant trouble need to be taken to ICU, and they may need what we call as non-invasive ventilation or a ventilator. Luckily, I must tell you, over several months, we have hardly seen 4 to 5 children who needed ventilation. So every week we are seeing more than hundreds of the children who can be or and who are being managed in home. So that is the reassuring message I want to give to the people, because sitting there, they're extremely worried. Children so far have very mild disease.
So as I'm pretty sure that you must have really treated many number of MIS patients after the first wave. What is the current scenario of MIS coming in the second wave?
Yes, what Kaustubh is asking about MISC, I want to reiterate what it means first and then our personal experience. MISC stands for Multisystem Inflammatory Syndrome Post-COVID. This is a condition which is happening in children who had infection in the recent past. What it means, in the preceding 3 to 4 weeks, if you had an active COVID infection, or you may have an infection but you remain asymptomatic. After 4 weeks or 6 weeks following that infection, we get a complex of symptoms, and that complex of symptoms are called as MISC. In this symptom complex, children get very high fever, which is acute onset, suddenly fever starts, high grade, goes on for 3 to 4 days. Along with this fever, children may or may not have some redness of the eyes, redness of the lips, redness of the tongue. Some children will have redness of the palms and soles. And some children on day 2 or 3 or maybe 4th day will start having some rash all over the skin. About 50% of these children who have MISC may also have significant vomiting, loose motion and stomach pain. So this symptom complex together, we suspect could this be MISC. And this is not a clinical diagnosis alone. In this condition, what generally happens is not only what we are seeing, the fever, rash, but there are some major organs that are affected. One of them is actually the heart. So in order to diagnose this condition, what you are mentioning, that is MISC, we need to do a test, simple test, CBC, C-reactive protein, procalcitonin, and ESR. If they are significantly elevated, we end up doing a second tier of investigation that includes ferritin, D-dimers, LDH. If these are affected, then we go on to do ECG, echocardiography, and investigation to check if the heart is affected by doing special tests called troponin I and proBNP. If all these investigations show these inflammation markers are elevated, then it is highly suggestive that it could be MISC. And these children need immediate admission and investigations.
Okay. So you have almost answered all our questions. Now what we're really worried about is the anticipated third wave. So your any thoughts?
Before that third wave, I'll take 1 minute if you don't mind. With this MISC, as we were managing in the last first wave, we are continuing to manage these children with MISC with a very effective medication called IV immunoglobulin. No doubt they are very expensive, but they are very effective. We give 2 grams per kilogram, and the duration of administration of this medicine is for 12 to 24 hours. After administration of these medications, luckily we have been seeing that most of the children are responding brilliantly. This IVIG is used in addition to steroids, and the steroid dose is depending on how severe the heart disease involvement is there. So the combination of this intravenous immunoglobulin and steroids have made the recovery in children with MIS is very, very rapid. So they respond brilliantly. We have not seen any major troubles with these, though they are extremely sick children. Within period of 72 hours, they show signs of recovery.
Okay. So coming to my question, the third wave, what do you think? It's the most anticipated thing that pediatric age group will be affected maximally in the third wave. What are your thoughts about it?
So, it's a good question. If we study the epidemiology of the previous flu pandemics and other things, they have seen several of the spikes: first wave, second wave, third wave, fourth wave, fifth wave. And in our country too, I think in the major cities we have already seen several waves. Coming to your specific anticipation, would it affect a pediatric population, honestly speaking, nobody knows. But we have an anxiety that they are the only group of children at the end of 4 to 5 months who may remain unprotected. What do you mean by unprotected? Most of the adults who have either had their vaccination, and almost 20%, 10% of the population would have been infected by them, or vaccinated, others would have been vaccinated. So the large, India being so vast, and the children or the population below 20 years constitute almost 1/3 of our population. The fear, the anxiety is that this may be the one of the most vulnerable group, and these children may be affected. In principle, it is a possibility. And I personally feel whether it will happen or whether it will not happen should be secondary. Our preparation should be such that it may happen. It's quite possible it may happen. That should be that. Because in second wave, what we have seen is really our preparation was a knee-jerk response in majority of the cases. There is a problem. Do what we need to do. I feel that for third wave, we need to be well prepared, and we should prevent a lot of casualties. We should prevent. Let us say there is a pediatric pandemic going to happen, and it is going to happen. That's how we should take a whole nation, both at national, state level, and local level, should do very good planning. For example, I come from a Bangalore. I can talk about Bangalore as such. There are certain premier institutes, Indira Gandhi Institute, Vani Vilas Hospital, and there are some private big hospitals like Narayana and other institutes. They can be chosen as a center of excellence for sick children. And their full infrastructure should be created so that if there is sudden increase or surge within a week's time, there is a place to keep them and infrastructure to manage them very effectively, rather than just parents rushing from home to hospital. This time, lately, the other organizations like BBMP in Karnataka has worked very effectively in triaging patients in the last few weeks at least, and they have been able to give beds appropriately. Similar good arrangement should be done so that the poor patients in need should be directed appropriately by a designated body to go to that center, and that center should be really willing to accept the child, initiate treatment immediately. Then the outcomes are going to be extremely good. Planning is the mantra if the next pandemic. So how do we plan? You create infrastructure, you create intensive care unit, you have all the things available, right from oxygen to the devices that we use, oxygen flow meters, HFNCs, ventilator, a designated place. You need to train the doctors because the numbers may be very high, so we need to do a lot of shifts, and nurses need to be retrained in looking after young children. The care of the children differs compared to adults. Adults do follow, whereas the affected baby may be newborn, maybe toddler. The toddler may not be separated from the mother. He may not accept, and sometimes mother may be negative and baby has become positive from his daddy, but the child cannot live in the hospital without mother. If we admit the mother is at a risk of infection. So all these challenges, mother has to be provided full PPE, mask, so that she doesn't get affected. At the same time, we are able to care that child. Those sort of adequate planning is extremely crucial. So I was called by our own chairman, and our team in pediatric has been asked to actually do a micro planning should a third wave happen. And we have already started working on building the infrastructure for both pediatric critical care, high dependency, and VAR, where the patients are completely isolated from other patients and yet cared by effective set of doctors and nurses.
That was very well said, sir. One last question from my side, and I'm pretty sure all the viewers also must be having your thoughts about vaccinating the children.
Absolutely. I mean, last 20-30 years we have seen such a dramatic decline in infection dramatic decline in mortality, morbidity in childhood compared to if you go back 30 years ago and now, our mortality is significantly low. And the single most factor for that is effective vaccination. Coming to vaccination of corona, it is in the pipeline. Zydus and other people are already doing phase 2 trial. America has given a lot of children vaccination beyond 16 years and 12 years too. And a lot of countries, there are trials that are going on. Once a safety data is published and the vaccine is ready available, I do not have a doubt about their efficacy, because we have by now vaccinated huge amount of population in the world. The rates of complication, risk of death, complication are extremely minuscule, whereas efficacy is significant, almost to the tune of 80. In the last pandemic, several of our doctor colleagues died, but after vaccination, very few. That itself speaks without any numbers or data that it has been efficacious, and I don't have any doubt that it will be efficacious to children too. But because of lack of studies, we have not been in a position to vaccinate our children. Once studies are there with adequate safety data, we will roll out the vaccination program too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I guess this rounds up all our important questions that we had in our minds, and I'm sure Safari sir has made it all clear. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time, and we'll see you. Thank you.